welcome to Cisca Stitches. In today's video, I'm going to show us how to draft the pattern for this illusion tube dress. So if you're new to my channel, you're welcome. Kindly click the subscribe button and click the bell so you get updates when I post new videos. As you can see, I have some lines on my pattern paper. Of course, I'm going to explain what these lines mean. So right here is my shoulder. I just drew a straight line at the top of my pattern paper. Now the next line that I have is my armhole measurement, and what I did was to divide my round armhole by 2. I have 9 inches here, and then I marked my bust point measurement, which is 10.5 inches from the shoulder. My under bust is 14 inches, and then I have my waist or half length to be 17 inches. So I just drew a horizontal line along those points, and this is what we have here. We are going to take this part as the center front. The first thing that we're going to do is to mark our shoulder measurement divided by 2. My shoulder is 16. 16 divided by 2 is 8. So I'm going to come right here and mark 8 inches. So that's what I have here. I'll come right down here and do the same thing. Mark 8 inches. And what we are going to do next is to draw a straight line across. And this straight line is what we are going to use to determine the armhole measurement. The next thing I'm going to do is to mark my chest line. So for me, I would go with 6 inches from my shoulder. You can actually, go with 7 inches from your shoulder. That is definitely up to you. So I'll come right here, mark 6 inches, and we are going to use this as our upper chest line. So just come here, join the point, so we have our upper chest line. So now that we have marked our chest line, what I'm going to do next is to come right here and mark the bust circumference. So from here to here is where I marked my 9 inches, right? So the horizontal line that we drew is where we are going to mark our bust circumference. So my bust circumference is 37. 37 divided by 4 is 9.25. So I'm just going to come right here and mark 9.25. Okay. Because it is tube dress, the underarm may be a bit exposed. So I like to come up by, half an inch. And then I'm going to connect from here to here with a French curve, so we can have like a mini armhole curve for this dress, just like this. So next I'm going to mark my darts, and in order for me to do that, I'll be needing my nipple to nipple measurement. All right, so I'm going to mark my nipple to nipple measurement divided by 2. Mine is 8. 8 divided by 2 is 4 inches. So starting from my upper chest line, I'll just mark 4 inches all the way down to my waist, and I'm going to draw a straight line across. Now I'm going to come at my waist. I'll be marking that of 1 inch on both sides. Okay, so I'm marking 1 inch here, I'm marking 1 inch here. Then I'll come to my under bust, do the same thing, mark 1 inch here, mark 1 inch here. And then I'm going to connect the points like this. So just draw a straight line joining these 2 points. What I'm going to do next is to come right to my bust point. I'm going to mark half an inch below and half an inch above. And what I'm going to do is to create our curve, okay, just like this. Just create the curve like that so that we can have a proper dart. The next thing we're going to do is to determine how open we want the illusion part to be. Now, I'm going to do mine in such a way that it does not get to the end of the waist that is going to join to the skirt part. From the image, you will see that the way it is more open from the bust area, and then it's sort of like closed towards the waist. So this is how I'm going to do mine. I'm going to just come up by half an inch from the waist. Okay, I mark half an inch. And then I'll come to my bust line. Now for this part, if you want your illusion part to be sort of like as wide as 1 inch, come here, mark half an inch. If you want the illusion part to be as wide as 1.5 inches, you're going to mark 3/4 inches here. So I'll be going with half an inch, which I have marked right here. And what I'm going to do at this point is to just create a slight curve, connecting the half an inch to this point here. So just like this. And this is the part that you're going to cut out on your illusion net, and you're going to cut it on fold. So now that we have done this, what I'm going to do right now is to connect from here to this point here with a curve. So I'll just go ahead and do this with free hand. So just go ahead and connect it like this for yours, okay? And what we are going to do at this point now is to connect from here to this part. So we do not need this armhole part that I drafted. So I'll just connect it like this all the way to this point here. So just like this. So now that we have done this, what I'm going to do is to come right here. We're going to take that at this point so that by the time we sew it up, it is going to be fitted on our bust. I'll be taking 1/2 inch towards my center front, okay, and I'll be taking 1 inch towards my armhole area. So I'll just come right here and mark that 1 inch. So this is 1 inch, this is 1/2 inch. And what I'm going to do is to connect this 1/2 inch to the 1/2 inch above our bust point line here. Connect this 1 inch to the 1/2 inch above the bust point line here to create the dart at the top part. Now that we have created the dart, all we need to do is to come here and measure what we have. So I have about 4.25 inches here. If I come here, I have 4 inches. Now, in order for your dart length to be the same and so that you're not shortened by the time you're sewing this on fabric, I'm just going to come here and mark 1/4 inch so that these two will be at the same level by the time you sew it up. And I'll just, connect it like this and then create a new armhole curve for that. So just like this. Very, very simple. What we are going to do next is to come right here. You will notice that the illusion net part is sort of curved. You don't need to worry yourself too much about that because if you're putting 1 layer of net, the fact that it will stretch may give it that curved shape. So if you want to make it curved, go ahead and just, curve it out by 1/4 inch like this. So did you see what I did here? So just curve it out a little. And the next thing I'm going to do now is to come right here and mark my bust circumference, okay? You would notice that I'm taking about 1/4 inch here and we have already marked our bust circumference here. So what I'm going to do is to just come right here and add that 1/4 inch. Okay, so add that 1/4 inch. I'm going to come to my under bust. My under bust is 34 inches. 34 divided by 4 is 8.5. So I'll come right here and mark 8.5. I'm taking that of 1 inch on both sides, that is 2 inch. I'll come right here and mark that 2 inches. Okay, then I'll repeat the same thing for my waist. My waist circumference is 34 as well. 34 divided by 4, 8.5. My dart is 2 inches. I'll come right here and mark that 2 inches. Okay, and the next thing that we are going to do is to connect our waist to under bust, connect under bust to the bust. So just like this. Now you notice that if I should connect this point here to this point here, the side area is going to be a lot skewed. So sometimes what I like to do is to just connect from my waist all the way to bypass my under bust, all the way to the armhole. Okay, this curve that I have here, I just connect it like this. And I notice that by the time I sew it up, I don't have any issues with the under bust here. Do you understand? So you can go ahead and do that for yours, but if you want to be on the safe side, just go on to connect from your waist to your under bust, from your under bust to your bust area or to your armhole area. By the time you sew it up and take it the darts, your bodies will come back to shape. Okay, so now that I've done this, all I'm going to do next is to go on to cut this out. So after cutting, I'm going to come right here and label this part. This is our center front. Okay, and this is the part that we're going to cut unfold for the illusion net. So you can see how small it is, okay? For the illusion net, cut unfold. Very, very important. The part that is going to be cut on the illusion net is going to be cut with a 1/2 inch seam allowance here. If you decide that you are going to double it, make sure to add a 1/2 inch seam allowance at this part as well, okay? And it is going to be cut on fold. This is the part that will be cut on fold. That's the center front part. You can see how small it is. So I hope my explanation makes sense to us. Now for this part, we are going to have a 1/2 inch seam allowance all around. all around this part, including the dart area. Okay, so this is the part that is going to be connected to the illusion net, and then this other piece is going to have a 1/2 inch seam allowance all around, with the exception of the side seam area. So go on to hide your normal side seam allowance, which can vary from 1 inch to 1.5 inches or 1/2 inch. So that's definitely up to you. So now that we have done the front part of this dress, I'm going to go ahead and show you how to quickly draft the back part. So for the back part, I have this pattern paper here. I'll be using the front as a guide. You want to make sure that the length of the back bodice is the same length as from your underarm here to the waist. Okay, so that is exactly what we have here. So from here to the waist. So now that we have done that, I'm going to keep my front pattern aside. I've marked a zipper allowance of 1 inch here, so I'll just record that as zipper allowance. And then from the zipper allowance, I marked my bust span, which is nipple to nipple distance divided by 2. And that is what we have here, 4 inch all the way down to the half length. Now what I'm going to do is to come right here and mark that allowance, that is at the half length. I'll mark that allowance of 1/2 inch on both sides, making a total of 1 inch. And then I'm going to connect here to here, and then connect from here to here. So after connecting, what I'm going to do next is to come right here and mark my bust circumference divided by 4. My bust circumference is 37. 37 divided by 4 is 9.25. Then I'll come right here, mark 9.25, starting from the zipper allowance line here. Okay, so just mark 9.25. All right. And then what I'm going to do next is to come to my waist. I'm going to mark my waist circumference divided by 4. My waist circumference is 34. 34 divided by 4 is 8.5. Okay, and then I have a 1 inch dart here. I'm going to mark that 1 inch. All right. And what I'm going to do is to connect waist to bust. So after connecting, the next thing we're going to do is to cut this out. Okay, so I'm going to cut this part here, cut this part, and then cut out the darts. Please note that if you want to have a back that is sort of slanted towards the zipper side, all you need to do is to mark how low you want the top of the back to be. If you want it to be lower by 1 inch, you mark your 1 inch here and then draw a curve up to this point here. But you need to make sure that you correct the dart legs so that they are sort of like equal. Now that I have this done, what I'm going to do next is to indicate where my seam allowances will be. My dart area will have 0.5 inch seam allowance. The top right here is going to have 0.5 inch seam allowance. Of course, we need to indicate where our side seam is so that we don't make the mistake of sewing the wrong sides of fabric together. And right here is the bottom of the bodice, sort of like the half length, if you get what I mean. So I'm using an arrow to indicate that. All right, so now that we have this done, this is what our pattern looks like for this type of bodice. So after drafting the front and back bodice, this is what we have. So right here is the front, and what we have here is the back. Right now you can decide to go on to sew the tube bustier like this with the illusion parts right here. Now if you want to have exactly what is in the thumbnail, exactly what we have in this picture here, what I would advise you to do, because you will notice that there is illusion net under the armpit area if you look at it very, very closely. So in order for that to happen, I'm going to join the side seam of the back to the side seam of the front. Now remember that this pattern does not have seam allowance. So in order for you to do that, don't add seam allowance to your pattern yet. Make sure to do that, on fabric. So here is the back. Here is where I have the zipper allowance, and this is the part where I have the side seam. Now what I'm going to do is to flip the side seam area like this so that it is touching the front part. And I'm going to tape this down together. Or if you can hold your pattern like this, go ahead and hold it. All you need to do right now is to determine how much of your pattern you want your illusion net to be, because this illusion net part is going to show your side boobs. So you can decide to maybe mark about 2 inches on both sides, or 1.5 inch on both sides. So let me just go with 1.5. So I'll mark the beginning right here, and I'll mark 3 inches right here. Okay, now the length that you want, if you want it all the way to the under bust area, all you need to do is to connect from here to the underbust place. Okay, you can use a straight or a curved ruler. I'm just doing this with free hand. Okay, then connect from here as well to this part here. Okay, so just like this. So this part is going to have illusion net, and I'm going to go on to cut this out. So after cutting it out, I taped it back together. This side will go to the side seam of the front. This side will go to the side seam of the back. So it's very, very important that you note which part is going to the front and which part is going to the back. Moreover, the curve around the armhole for the front is going to be a guide for you. So this is what we have. If you decide that you want to go ahead and, you know, make something like this, this is how to draft the pattern with cut out illusion net. If you want to see how to sew this up, I'm just going to do a mock-up of this. If you want to see how to sew this up, just go ahead and leave comments in the comment section. Okay, the more people that are interested in this would let me know that, okay, let me do the sewing tutorial for this. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, kindly give me a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, turn on the bell so you get updates when I post new videos, and I'll be seeing you in my next tutorial. Bye.